tap into your most original thinking, organize your ideas, and create the opportunities to launch your creative work. Unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson.
Well, welcome back again, friends, to our podcast, Unlocking Your World of Creativity, where we talk to creative professionals all over the world to find out how they get inspired with ideas and how they gain the confidence and connections to get the work out into the world. I'm just so glad today to have as my guest, Elizabeth Hansen. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Yes, working professionals. You couldn't find one, so you called me.
There you go. And I don't know, how do you define professional? That you're actually making money?
That's the only way I can define it.
I mean, that's kind of limiting, actually.
Again, so you couldn't find one, so you called me.
Elizabeth is the co-founder and chief creative officer of a company called Dramafy LLC, an audio drama streaming service. And Elizabeth, I'm fascinated by this idea of taking your skills and background in drama and in acting and in filmmaking and applying it to audio programming. How did you make that application?
It's an interesting genesis because I've been in the entertainment business as an actor, as a writer, as a director or producer for like 40 years now. And in 2019, right before the big COVID thing happened, I produced a musical in off Broadway in New York, and I drove there carrying props and sets because it was cheaper to do that than rent them in New York. And on my drive back, as I was totally exhausted, I said, I can't do this anymore. Filmmaking is too expensive. Theater is too expensive. Trying to find distribution afterwards, trying to find theaters to produce it afterwards. And then, of course, timing is everything. So December, we finished in New York in December, and then we know what happened in March. So yes. Theater as we know it kind of died. And then I got this thought. I said, I can't do this anymore. It's too expensive. And then I got this thought, well, radio isn't. So I had grown up just at the tail end of old time radio and radio theater, you probably remember, CBS radio mystery theater and the stuff that they used to do on NPR. And I loved all of that stuff. When I was in Los Angeles, I used to listen to it at night, and it was so much fun. And I remember my folks talking about it, Mary Worth and The Shadow and all those great things. And so I started doing some Googling and found out that there was this huge renaissance of audio theater, of audio drama. And I got this idea of writing, producing, and directing audio theater or audio drama. And I talked with my film producing partner at the time, and I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that. And I want to create I didn't have a word for it. So I said, I want to create this network where we can put all these audio dramas curated, because what I found was that a lot of because it's the Wild West out there, you never knew what you were going to get.
That's right.
So I wanted to make sure that it was kind of family friendly, and you wouldn't, if you had kids in the back seat, it wasn't like, oh, golly, got to turn that off now. And it was Ken Harris, my film producing partner, who kind of came up with the idea of Dramafy and how to monetize it. So what we hope to do is become like the Netflix of audio drama, which is kind of cool.
That's very cool. And how is the network building? How many dramas
it's really doing
curated
well
at this time?
It was in fits and starts because we're bootstrapping the company, which is not fun at all. So doing things on a shoestring, you trip a lot on your shoestrings. So but in the last 3 or 4 months, we started out as just a subscription company, and because nobody knew really who we were and what audio drama was. I mean, you ask anybody around audio drama, they go, is it a podcast? Mm-hmm. And you went, kind of, but so in January, we implemented Listen Free with ads, and that really took off. So we have tripled our listenership in the last few months, and we just started doing Google ads, which has, I'm just in awe. I mean, our conversion rate of clicks to signups, the worst we've done is 10%. And that was over the Easter weekend. But yesterday we were at 63%. It was like amazing.
Love that.
So
Great
I love
experience.
it. I love it. Yeah.
Well, let's take it back to the beginning if we could, Elizabeth, and that is these elements of a good drama, whether it's theater or film, and how you apply those key elements into an audio drama. Compare and contrast for us.
Okay. Well, we like to say, I remember hearing a quote once where it was like, radio is just like the movies, only the pictures are better. because you get to create them in your mind. So these are like movies for your ears. So they're fully scripted, fully acted, fully sound designed and scored. So it's just like watching a movie with your eyes closed. And just like any story, whether it be literature or performance oriented, it really boils down to the characters. Are the characters compelling and interesting, and are the relationships and the plot that surrounds them compelling and entertaining? And those are pretty much the criteria. I mean, we have a lot of creators who are doing this, with no money. And so we have some that have extraordinary sound effects and fully scored, and then we have some that are great stories, but they don't have the means and the wherewithal to flesh them out quite as well. But the difference is, it's still a great story. So who cares whether you hear footsteps or not? Yes. It's still a great story.
Well, and you mentioned some of these classics. I come to mind Prairie Home Companion.
Yes.
There were times when it was campy, yes, and production values being what they were, you could tell it was the clap of the hands for the horse's hooves. But
exactly,
it was fun, and the story was great. I mean, it did draw you in. It was truly, as we call it today, destination listening.
Absolutely, Guy Noir is like classic.
Yes,
absolutely,
yes.
Classic.
And thinking about the elements, then you've talked a little bit about the crafting of the stories and kind of the production values, but then what about getting it out into the world, as we say, the promoting and the whatever it takes, muddy boots, pounding the pavement virtually, maybe.
Yeah, and this is what I think is this is the thing that I love so much about what my partner Ken with Dramafy came up with, is that with audio drama, podcasting, that kind of stuff, most audio that's out there right now, unless it's music, it's really hard for a creator to make money, because you put it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, which are great platforms. But Spotify itself has over 2 million podcasts. So audio dramas are considered podcasts with them. So in this 2 million sea of 2 million podcasts, trying to find an audio drama, let's say that there's, let's be generous and say there's 5,000 audio dramas out there. Trying to find them, if you Google, 10 best, the same 10 to 15 podcasts come up all the time. So what we decided to do was we created a platform where we reserve 20% of our gross income, and we share that with our creators, depending on how many minutes are listened to. And it's great because there's no other platform that does that. So one of the reasons we want people to come on exclusively for at least a couple of months is that, it's the fear of, so like, be the first one around the water cooler to hear it. But it's also really great for them, because we've noticed that when something is new on the site, it gets listened to a lot, and therefore they get more of the dollars. So it's small starting out with, but it's more than they get on any of the other podcasts, and you don't get lost in this huge sea of music and podcasts.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you mentioned something I wanted to maybe underscore, and that was it within the story development, the character development. Do you find that in these drama podcasts, you almost have to create the magnet of the character? I mean, this is why I want to listen, not just to one episode, but maybe over and over to the story, is because I am attracted to or connected to the character.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really the only reason we care about stories. I mean, look at Marvel. I mean, they have enough money to do all this amazing CGI, but really the reason we tune into it is because the character of Iron Man is so compelling. The character of Thanos was so wonderful. Here's this bad guy that has all these layers to him, family and daughters and everything that is just extraordinary. I mean, so it's not just we tune in because we identify with the characters. We're going through what the characters are going through. I remember writing a play about a historical character, a Utah historical character, and we put it on at a local university. And it was a really bad day for me. It was like, I don't want to do this. It was a one-woman show and I was doing it and it was hard. And they had put me in a crappy theater and I wasn't really happy about it. And so I just begrudgingly did it that one night. And after the show, this woman came up to me who said, I was so depressed today. I didn't want to get out of bed and I didn't even want to come to the theater, but I'd already bought the tickets. So I came to the theater and she said, if Eliza can get through it, I can get through it. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's the reason we do these things. It's amazing how art and theater and drama can really change your life. It really, it does. And that's the wonderful thing about story.
Yeah. And you mentioned even the historical characters, whether fiction or nonfiction. And I think about some of the other guests on the podcast here that have talked about, bringing a Marilyn Monroe story to new insights on a person we've known forever, or another guy who's created a Beatles drama, how they got together and how they met and sort of has recreated these scenes. So even characters we think we know, like Eliza, maybe we find new things about them when we imagine it in audio instead of just seeing it on the movies.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great.
And your background includes a lot of media and awards. And I wanted to talk about awards for a second. You've won.
Yes, please do. Let's talk about all the things
awards and Emmy nominations, and the list goes on.
It goes on and on.
We'll definitely have them in the show notes to impress folks on the CBS Afterschool Special Awards and for all the other programming. But
for all of you who remember those from
all
the 1980s.
Of those things. That's right. We all came home to watch the Afterschool Special.
We did.
But what would awards mean now? I think in ad agencies, we like awards because it kind of is a peer review of our work, perhaps. But in the podcast and audio drama field, what can an award mean to a podcaster?
Well, and that's a really interesting question. And it's the same kind of thing. It separates you from the herd. And I think that's the main thing. So that, when you're looking at, let's talk about a film, because everybody's kind of familiar with those little appeared at Sundance or Sundance winner or, Tribeca
nice
Film
wreath. Festival.
It's got the nice wreath around it. So when it's got the nice wreath around it, it separates it from the herd and said, professionals who are supposed to know, professionals who this was singled out as excellent and exceptional material. So, maybe that's something I should listen to, because some other people said it's just like word of mouth, only with wreaths around it, with shrubbery around it. Get some laurel wreaths and put it on. So I think it's and there's only like 2 or 3 associations and organizations that give out awards for audio drama. The list is growing. BBC just joined the herd, but the only problem with the BBC awards is that you have to have produced it in the UK. Mm-hmm. So it was like, dang. But there's a couple other ones, and some of the film festivals, interestingly enough, like I mentioned Tribeca before. We have one that's coming on Dramafy in the next week. That was an audio drama that was selected for the Tribeca Film Festival, because they're starting to recognize, especially since the pandemic, when nobody could go out and film anything, that this is how creative people were experiencing and channeling their creativity. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Well, let's look over the horizon then, Elizabeth. And you've taught in the university setting, and screenwriters of the future. What do you see coming next? How are the new creatives going to apply some of these crafts?
That is a really interesting and thought-provoking question. I've thought about that a lot, because COVID absolutely transformed and changed the entertainment landscape. It really did. And especially it did for the more independent filmmakers and creators, because the money totally dried up. The other thing that's changed the landscape is the streaming services, which then flourished during COVID because we couldn't go to the movie theater. But it's really difficult now to get distribution as an independent filmmaker, because you used to really count on getting foreign distribution in order to get funding for your film. Well, there's foreign distribution is really kind of dried up, and it's mostly, everything's pretty much gone to streaming. Let me get out my crystal ball.
That's right.
And I think that the movies that you see in the movie theaters are going to be what we call tentpole movies. They're going to be from the larger studios, and they're going to be the movies, the big movies of epic proportion. They're going to be the Mission Impossible. They're going to be the Marvel movies. They're going to be these larger tentpole movies. There will be a few smaller movies, simply because they're, the theater's got to have something to put in it. But I think most of the film production is going to go towards streaming. But I also think that because I think COVID is with us forever, and it's just going to be an endemic. Is that how you say it? Endemic?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like here forever, like the flu.
Yes.
I think audio drama is going to be this new frontier that is going to re-energize the entertainment community. And the thing that I love about audio drama, and this is what's so exciting for me, in fact, whenever I get a new submission from a creator, I reach out to them and I talk to them. I have met some of the best people who are creating these things. They're just good folks. And what I love about audio drama is because it's affordable, you can do it on a shoestring. It allows people who can't get into the Hollywood system an opportunity to display their creative voice. And I find that extraordinarily exciting. Because what we also want to do down the road a piece with Dramafy is we want Dramafy to be the incubator, the new development tool that then you can test out a story in a cost-effective way, and then see if it garners an audience, and then take it then to the next level.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That is exciting. Video and movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to get very logistical, but first I want to make sure everyone knows how to connect with you and find you and learn more about your work. Elizabeth, where can we find you?
You can find me at Elizabeth@dramafy.com. Go ahead and reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. You can also just find Dramafy at dramafy.com. Pretty simple. You can listen free with ads, or if you wanna, if you're not afraid of commitment, you can stream it for like $4 a month. That's all it costs, and it's great.
Love it. Well, let's picture a listener who says, wow, I've really caught the bug. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I really want to get an audio project off the ground, maybe in the second half of 2022. And so, Elizabeth, boy, you've really caught my ear. I want to make a submission, but I want to be prepared. What are some of the elements, I'll call it, of the pitch that you're listening for, that in those engaging conversations you might have with a creator? What are you listening for, and what are you really expecting from them?
Well, I mean, the first thing that you hear is the production value and the acting. So, I mean, and that's a real legit, like you said, it's a real logistical thing. Then, because I've been a writer since, the late 70s, I listen for the dialogue and the character development. And good character development is hard. And I'm not as concerned about plot. I know that sounds weird. Because if you've got compelling characters in a compelling situation, the plot is going to figure itself out. And especially if you've done your homework, if you know where you're going with the story. Everybody needs to know where they're going with the story. I used to tell my students, okay, you've got a 2-week vacation. What's the first thing you do? And they go, well, pack. You do this and that. I said, well, how do you know where to pack if you don't know where you're going? Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, so now we know we're going to go to Mount Rushmore. There are a couple of different roads that we can get to Mount Rushmore, but at least we know where we're going. So a writer really needs to know where the story is going, especially if it's episodic, if you've got more than one episode. We have a lot of things that are just standalone pieces, which are great. We have all sorts of different kinds, but we've got also we've got a show that's got like 4 seasons in it already, with multiple episodes in them. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for compelling dialogue, compelling characters, and compelling and engaging characters, because if the characters in the story isn't engaging, why bother? Mm-hmm. A person is just gonna, I've got one on there that I think is really great, but it's my own story, and I'm just gonna be real vulnerable here. But people are only listening to the first episode, and they're not listening to the other 6. And it's like, right. I wonder why. So, well, and I just think it's, I think that the characters are engaging. I just think it's a little too, women oriented. It's so anyway, I have to kind of noodle that and try to figure out what's wrong with it.
Well, and to your point, this gives you a chance to test it out on a platform, get some feedback, retool or expand, whichever it is.
I know. And that's the beauty of this medium, is that I produced the entire series, the entire first season on like $5,000. Mm-hmm. And that was the most expensive one that I'd done. I've got one on there called The Absolutely Positively True Adventures of Babe the Dog, which was about my yellow Labrador. And, I produced that for like $250. So
it can be done.
And it's been, the difference between is that Babe the Dog is listened to by like everybody, because it's like Babe the Dog. It's about this yellow Labrador.
And that's where characters come in. I love it.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth Hansen, for being my guest and sharing all your experiences and insights. Appreciate it.
Well, Mark, it's been a pleasure. I did my due diligence on you as well, and your wife should be impressed with you. So,
yeah, well, between her and my mother, I've got a great following here.
There you go. Thank heavens for them.
There you go.
Thank you for having me.
My guest has been Elizabeth Hansen of Dramafy, an audio drama streaming service. And we've learned so much about character development. And I think about listeners, this podcast, it's thanks to you and the characters, the guests that have been able to come on my show. And
I'm one of them.
That's right. We've surpassed 100,000 downloads. We're coming up on our 200th episode, and we just couldn't do it without you. So we really appreciate it. Share it with your friends. And of course, give us a review and feedback wherever you listen to podcasts. And join me again for our next episode. We'll continue our Around the World travels. We've stamped our creative passport in Salt Lake City today. We'll continue our journey around the world to talk to creative practitioners on how they get inspired, how they organize their ideas and pitch their ideas, and most of all, how they gain the confidence and the connections to launch their work out into the world. Until next time, I'm Mark Stinson, and we're unlocking your world of creativity. See you soon.
Unlocking Your World of Creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This program was produced by BSB Media, creators of IntelliKey Leadership Stories, Unlocking Your World of Creativity, and thepeaceroom.love. We've created a special offer just for listeners of the podcast. You can get the book, A World of Creativity, for a special price of $5.98 for paperback, and the Kindle version is only 99 cents. Go to mark-stinson.com to take advantage of this special offer.